Hello and welcome. Japan and the UK are in recession. Japan has in fact slipped behind Germany. It's now the world's fourth largest economy. Germany is also heading towards a recession, and India is now a beacon of hope for investors. India could in fact eclipse both Japan and Germany in terms of GDP by 2027. India is currently the world's fifth largest economy. It's the world's fastest growing large economy. And growth is projected to reach 6.2% this year. The Indian economy today is firing on all cylinders. And that's also the overall theme of our What India Thinks Today Global Summit. India poised for the next big leap.
Hi Sandeep, thank you very much for that. India poised for the next big leap, and the world is looking at India as a shining example to discuss India's growth story and what is in store as far as a world economic outlook towards India and India's growth is concerned. Let me quickly get on board. Rakesh Khar joining us here on the show. Also with me is R. Sridharan. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out, and thank you for being a part of this discussion where we're hoping to understand India's growth trajectory, but more so as TV9 prepares for that mega global summit. I want to come to you, Rakesh, first. Why is the world looking at India when it comes to growth? What has India got to offer?
There's such a tailwind surrounding India that it's very difficult to locate a negative when one talks about the India story today. For me, I have categorized this as a 4 I story, followed by 1 D and 1 F. I'll just explain quickly so that we decode the India growth story. Remember the Incredible India campaign that we launched in regard to tourism? I would call it now the Incredible Bullish India story. That's how the world is looking at it. It's truly incredible. Coming to the 4 I's, it's infrastructure, investment, inclusion, and finally, it is indigenization. That's Make in India. Building Indian companies, giving them the strength to stand on their own feet, not only domestically but in the global arena. We haven't yet reached there, but the aspiration is quite right. These are 4 I's, which are the 4 key pillars of India growth story. That's how the world is looking at. In this, these 4, to my mind, inclusion is the biggest takeaway for the world at large. Now I come to the big D, which is digitization. That's again a global template. In a very short span of time, India has fast-tracked its growth journey using digital as the architecture, as the pivot, as the lever. And then 1F, which is the federal play. See, we have a case today in India where we have a very strong center led by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is making his bid for the 3rd time and who is going to address the, What India Thinks Global Summit as the summit keynote. And we have very strong states. Even the weaker states have an aspiration today to become the leader. So the laggard to leader story, for instance in Uttar Pradesh, is such a remarkable story. Bihar is also making its momentous changes. We have challenges there, but every state is competing and collaborating and converging on this big story called India poised for the next big leap.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in fact, I want to add one more alphabet to that.
Yeah, please.
C. That's the big C, the I plus C, the India plus 1, the China plus 1. And 3, we are looking at the figures coming out of China.
Right.
80% contraction in FDI. It's the lowest in over 3 decades.
That's right.
Is that a big opportunity for India to fit
Absolutely,
in the China
absolutely.
plus 1 strategy?
Absolutely, without any doubt, Sandeep. Just to add a couple of things to what Rakesh was saying, if you look at the big picture, there's also a decadal momentum that's behind India. And there's the other half of the story is basically geopolitical movement. Because if the world is looking at India because they have run out of maybe options in other parts, which were until recently an option for them, and now suddenly India is looking better in comparison to those options, right? So that's exactly what's happening. You talked about China, FDI dropping to a 30-year low, unprecedented real estate crisis, which has been building up over decades, but it's finally come to a head. Aging population, productivity drop. So the best of forecasts, whether it's IMF or China's own internal, independent economists, they are looking at least 5 to 10 years of a slowdown ahead of China. Now, there is no other large market which can take up that space. If you look at India, that's the only market which can fill China's big shoes. So China has been a modern miracle, no doubt about it. But I think the formula in which they built and grew at a breakneck pace over the last, let's say, 3 decades, that's now probably come to a full circle now. So I think that's run out of steam. India, on the other hand, we have never excessively built or, we have always been fiscally prudent as a country. We have not overbuilt infrastructure.
Right.
In fact, there's a huge scope for infrastructure growth even now. Like Rakesh was mentioning, one of the I's that he mentioned was, infrastructure. Unlike China, we have another D, which Rakesh, also wanted to mention, but this is a demographic dividend. We have a huge pool of young talent, a labor force which is available. So you're not going to run out of any kind of productivity challenge. So which is why the world is looking at India now as a manufacturing base as well. I think the more important issue, Sandeep, which we tend to underplay is also, that India is not seen as an aggressive, hegemonistic country. Like, unfortunately, China has built itself up, at least under Mr. Xi Jinping. So I think there is a greater comfort for the world to deal with a democratic country where the systems are strong, the judiciary is robust, the political systems are robust, and there's transparency in everything. So I think these large factors, I mean, there are multiple factors, but those have come together to mean that this is India's moment. And this is what India is going to benefit from, not just for the next 5 years, but I think going forward 15, 20 years, perhaps. So this is a tailwind which Rakesh was mentioning, which is very clearly behind India right now.
And now that we've established why world is looking at India, let's also understand historically, in the past couple of years, Sandeep, and you and I were discussing this, the world is facing a headwind when it comes to various wars, disruption in supply chains, and resultantly the shockwaves that have hit badly some of the Western economies, with Japan, Germany, UK almost on brink of recession or in recession at this point in time. And in all of this, you have India standing out.
Right, absolutely. You have India that's bulletproof. In fact, that's the headline that we gave to one of our documentaries. We could take a quick look at that. Bulletproof India. Why India is actually standing ahead of the pack. What are the factors that power India ahead of the rest of the countries that are in deep recession today? Let's watch.
These continuous waves of shocks have really disrupted the supply side of the economy, and that has had inflationary effects across the world, which affects all of us.
Very critically, we kept doing supply side reform.
India deserves to be called a bright spot on this otherwise darker horizon.
Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.